on the N3 along the Van Reenen's Pass, which remains closed due to a strike by truck drivers who've blocked part of the highway. The N3 toll route says northbound traffic at the Tugela Plaza and southbound at Wilge Plaza have been affected. It also says the police are on scene to try and control the overall flow of traffic there. Motorists travelling to and from KwaZulu-Natal, Gauteng and the Free State have been advised to delay their travel plans. The disruptions are expected to continue into the night. In October, disgruntled truck drivers also blocked the N3, protesting against the employment of foreigners in the freight industry. But for more on this then, I'm joined by Barbara Momin, Maputo Corridor representative. Barbara, a very good evening to you. Thank you so much for being with us tonight. Is what we're seeing today, is it all to do with the employment of cheap and foreign labor in the freight industry?
I can't speak with any authority on the N3, but from what I understand from our own experience on the N4 corridor, which is the Maputo corridor, it's not necessarily cheap labor. It is because quite a lot of our exports move through several countries, not just through South Africa. And for us to, for the expectation to be there that our transport companies should not employ foreign drivers is fairly unrealistic, in the sense that there are, depending on the logistics supply chain and the intricacies of that, they would need certain drivers from other countries to operate their vehicles. And I believe that Parliament's latest intervention is in the right direction, because we are talking about an African continental free trade area where people and goods are meant to move with freedom. We cannot have the kind of attitude that says, don't take our jobs, because this is not about taking jobs. It's actually, if we allow supply chains and logistics supply chains to move, what we're actually doing is giving the economy a leg up. What is happening
argument,
today,
Barbara, pardon me, the argument has been that in industries where these are unskilled laborers, essentially, it is unfair that thousands of jobs, hundreds or thousands of jobs, go to foreign drivers, A, because the industry can pay them less, while B, you've got a local workforce that has driver's licenses but is not being employed.
Well, I think it's difficult to prove that. And one of the things we have to look at is looking at it in a more scientific way. And if that is indeed the case, then it would require the sort of relevant intervention. But in my own experience, that is definitely not the case. It may be a percentage of the case, and there's always truth to the rumor, but I don't think that it's the majority of the cases. And in actual fact, our transport industry is very regulated. And while the employment issue is certainly a hot topic, we've got to understand that the kind of dynamic that exists around appointing staff is really something that is constitutionally protected. And I think if there are, as in any industry, you were just previously talking about the mining industry, if there is indeed some sort of issue, then it needs to be dealt with the relevant scientific approach.
Okay.
And I think that it's critical that we don't jump to conclusions around what the causes are.
But there is definitely a labour issue, because this is a recurring matter. But I want us to move on then to the issues along the Maputo corridor, where you are a representative. There have been issues, I understand, with the movement of goods. Why are there such delays along the route?
Well, at this point, one has to understand that we've got a backlog in terms of the ability of Transnet Freight Rail to provide sufficient capacity for the growth of mineral bulk cargo in transit. The Minerals Council of South Africa indicated that over the last 5 years, cargo exports from minerals and bulk cargo has increased by 300%. Now, in terms of logistics supply chains, that cargo is going to find the closest route to a port and to its market. And the Port of Maputo actually offers a very short route to the port and to a direct sailing, in fact, often to India and the Far East. So we've got to look at it from the point of view of what's best for the logistics supply chain. And certainly, and I am the first person to say it's untenable for us to have the numbers of tipper trucks that we have on our corridor. But in the face of very few alternatives, mines have to get their bulk cargo out of the country if they're going to be able to pay their salaries and pay their workers and to continue to market their goods and to trade competitively. So it's a huge challenge, and I think it speaks to what is really a very sad state of affairs in our transport sector. We've seen the capacity of the ports really struggling. Richards Bay and Durban have had serious issues as well. And, naturally the Maputo corridor presents a favourable option. Otherwise, no one would be using it.
But are we any closer to the issue of what you've been calling for, a 24-hour border operation? Are we any closer to that becoming a reality to help ease this congestion?
I think I'm very encouraged. I had a call today from the Border Management Agency, and I'm very encouraged because the approach was very positive, very much a let's work together. And I know that we have a culture on the Maputo corridor where private sector works together with public sector to resolve the issues. And I think it's critical that we continue with that approach, because private sector can't do it on its own, and government is very challenged. We know how resource challenged they are, both in human expertise and in financial resources. And this is a critical opportunity for us to take hands and really make this work for the benefit of the country.
Finally, Barbara, just in 30 seconds, if you can, was this issue better before the pandemic? Because we are under curfew, and that has obviously restricted movement in some parts, or has it always been a crisis?
Look, it's the corridor, I think prior to 2019, operated fairly efficiently by African corridor standards. And so what one has to look at is why has movement of goods been affected so dramatically. But I think in the last 2 years, we've seen considerable increase in traffic. And by the same token, COVID transport restrictions have certainly not helped. And so we're very challenged in that sense. But we've seen a very positive recovery in terms of trade moving on the corridor. But obviously, we need to deal with these bottlenecks, which I believe we will be sorting out in partnership with government.
Barbara Momin, good to speak to you. Barbara is a representative for the Maputo corridor, speaking to us more broadly about the issues facing the freight industry, from strikes to the backlog in the movement of goods between South Africa and Maputo.